Drummond.
Bug, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I'd like to thank the Petitions Committee for securing this debate on these two petitions, and particularly congratulate all the people that have put the petitions into place. Diagnosis and support for autistic people is something I take a close interest in, because early assessment and diagnosis can make a huge difference to people's lives. As we've heard, currently we do not identify autism quickly enough at any stage in life, despite the increase in focus and awareness of autism in recent decades. I've seen in my own work as an MP what a difference diagnosis and support can make to the lives of autistic people, unlocking their potential and further increasing our understanding and treatment of the condition. I remember really clearly one woman who came into my surgery very concerned about how her daughter was getting on at secondary school. I tentatively asked her whether she'd thought about a diagnosis of autism, and she said she hadn't. A couple of years later, I got an email from her thanking me for changing their lives. The daughter received a diagnosis of autism and is now getting the help she needs. Apparently, she's a completely different person now. This undiagnosed autism has a huge impact on education. I was chair of governors at Milton Park Primary School in Portsmouth, which has an autism provision in its dedicated inclusion centre. Crucially, the centre works with children undergoing assessment, as well as those who've been given an education, health and care plan. Autistic children often do struggle in mainstream education settings, and specialised support is important. We must ensure that this area is properly resourced. Autistic people face stigma and a lack of understanding in education, work and society. It can affect their socialisation and how they handle transitions from familiar surroundings to unfamiliar ones. Mental health conditions are at an increased risk for autistic people. Even now, there are still cases of autism being mistaken for a learning disability, which is a concern because of the different kinds of support the two conditions need. While it's possible for someone to be autistic and have a learning disability, the two are distinct conditions. I know from my own casework and research that the process of getting an EHCP for any condition can be long and difficult, even in areas like Hampshire County Council, which has an outstanding child services team. An area which is even more fraught with difficulty is the diagnosis and support for autistic people later in life. Very often people are diagnosed as having faced barriers to employment or career development, but eventual diagnosis still makes a huge difference to the rest of their lives and can allow them a new start and a better understanding of who they are. We're around halfway through our National Autism Strategy, launched in 2021, and I appreciate the additional funding and improvements to the diagnostic pathways this is bringing. But like everything in social services, autism services have been set back by the COVID pandemic. Research by the Autism Society shows that the waiting list for autism assessment has grown by more than 40%. Autism, as we've heard, is not a mental health condition, but it falls within the scope of the NHS Mental Health Services data set collection, as well as the Community Services data set. So can I ask the Minister to look up setting a separate data set for autism and related conditions, which gives us a clear picture of the time from first referral to diagnosis and the beginning of support, and I know that other members have talked about that too. And the other ask I'd give is, can the Minister also ensure me that as part of our catching up in education, that we can have further support for autism diagnosis and support in schools? We cannot afford to allow young people to slip through, because that would amount to a loss of support for them. But also... I will, absolutely.
I'm very grateful. She's making an excellent speech, and she will recognise we're currently launching an inquiry into persistent absence from school. Does she share my experience that so many children are away from school because their parents don't feel that they're getting the support that they need, and that actually, in many cases, clearer, earlier diagnosis, getting the right support in place would help us to solve that problem, help to make sure that those children are getting the right support in the safest place for them to be.
Yes, my honourable friend's absolutely right. And of course, I'm also asking for a register of homeschool children, so that we could also look into that as well, because that would be very much part of the register, so we can identify them very quickly. As I was saying, it would make it, we do need to have support for autistic children, because without it, and autistic people generally, because without them, the loss of society of the potential and value of autistic people would be much missed. Thank you.